Hello, how you doing? Good evening, everyone. Hi, Tula. Hi, Tracy. Hi, Lisa, Nikki. All right. How's it all going? Ursula, nice to meet you. Hi, Dominique. Hey, Kirsten. Nice to see you guys. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Kundalini Code. I am a representative. If you don't know already, I am a representative of this non-profit organization here called AYA, which stands for Awaken Your Awareness. And AYA is tasked with teaching and delivering all sorts of forms of healing in many, many different forms, because all parts of our society need healing, not just individuals and families and communities and societies, but all the infrastructure and the systems that we use as part of our societies also need healing, don't they? So that's what Aya is all about. And Aya is also a Sanskrit word, which means the arrival of a new phase, the arrival of a new time. And that is referring to the global awakening, which is fast approaching, which is a transition from one planetary cycle to the next, a transition from the age of suffering to the golden age of self-realization, which we have all been waiting for a very, very, very long time for. Dominic, hi. Hi, Vision. How you doing? Nice to see you. Dominique, I'm assuming it's normal to feel like I don't know whether I'm coming or going. Yes, it is normal. Dominique, you're, just for everyone else's benefit, Dominique is in the phases of self-realization, which is past the Kundalini awakening phase of self-realization, and it can be a very confusing time. There's lots of purging going on, so you're being triggered a lot. You're feeling a lot of emotion, a lot of negative thoughts, but you know, some positive, some bliss as well, of course. But yeah, you don't know whether you're coming and going. The reason why that is because it's the lower mind which is getting destabilized. The lower mind is getting sort of smoothed away. All the conditioning patterns in the lower mind and brain is getting very slowly smoothed out or ironed out. But you know, that's a nice way of putting it. Really, what's going on is your higher mind is doing things to destabilize the foundations of the lower mind. So the lower mind sends in these types of thoughts into your conscious awareness, these types of thoughts that make you feel like, I don't know whether I'm coming or going. That's exactly it. But that's the lower mind saying that. So realize that. Realize that those are just thoughts coming from your lower mind, because it is the lower mind which is getting destabilized. Hi, Kirsten. Well, you're very welcome. That's what we are here for, 100%. And by the way, everybody that goes through Kundalini awakening and subsequently self-realization always ends up helping somebody else to go through it. That's kind of just what happens. You become a teacher or a healer or a leader of some kind in this space. Can you meditate lying down? Absolutely you can. Yes, you can meditate doing anything and in any position, with your eyes open, with your eyes closed. While you're doing things like tasks, you can meditate while you're doing other things. You do not have to stand up. You don't have to sit up. You don't have to make any funny position. You don't have to do anything with your hands. You don't have to cross your legs. You don't have to dim the lights. You really can meditate at any time of day, doing anything, because meditation is totally free. Of course, you don't have to pay for it. You don't have to buy a meditation app. You don't have to buy a meditation course. Okay, sometimes these things can help you learn, of course, but you don't have to. You can get everything for free, and meditation is going on in here, and you can do it with your natural surroundings. It's all about focusing. It's all about focusing your mind on one thing, the object of meditation. You make a split between the subject and the object. The subject is you doing the meditating, and the object is what you are focused on in the mind. And that can be something that you're looking at. That can be something that you're hearing. That can be something that you're feeling inside your body, kinesthetic senses. So yes, meditation can be done at any time. And you can even do it while you're doing tasks as well. If you keep your mind centered and focused on your senses while you are performing a task, that is called task-orientated meditation. Hi, what do you know about seeing electric blue orbs when meditating or eyes closed? Okay, so electric blue is an interesting color because electric blue is this color here of the blue butterfly. Now I don't know when I point whether when I point there, it's pointing at the right place. It's a butterfly I'm pointing at. Anyway, that's the electric blue color. That's that color there. That is that's Aya's logo. And electric blue is the frequency or the color of unconditional love. It has a color. Love is a type of energy, and unconditional love has a color frequency, and that's the color of it. So when you're seeing these type of things, you've got to ask yourself, is it a type of intuition coming through from your high mind? Is it trying to give you a message about unconditional love? Whenever someone sees that color, that's a very likely thing. However, there is another explanation which you need to decide with your intuition. Another explanation is that energy orbs exist around us in the collective mind. So a lot of people see energy orbs flying around the collective mind. They have something to do with communication patterns in the collective mind. So, and sometimes orbs can be photographed as well. So you can see them with your energy sight. So anyway, there's two possible options there that you can think about and use your intuition to decide. And maybe even it's a combination of the two somehow. Hi Tracy. Can you say why, since the near breakdown through dealing with suicide, I see blue circle lights? Well, there could be a number of answers to that, to be honest with you. Because it could be something neurological. We should always look at the easy answer first. Well, it's not an easy answer, is it really? But the material body answer first, and the brain can do neurological things sometimes. So that's always a possible answer. Another possible answer is energy senses. Like I was just saying, when you start to see, you can start to see the collective mind around you. And by the way, the collective mind is a magnetic energy framework which connects us all. And this collective mind has chakra cords running through it. When we connect with other people through emotional connections, we connect with chakra cords that connect our emotion chakras with other people. And there's other forms of communication. Telepathy goes through the collective mind. Anyway, it is a magnetic energy framework. And sometimes you can actually see the fabric of it. And sometimes you see it in gold. If you look really closely, you can see it in little fibrous gold patterns. But sometimes you see blue bits to it as well. There's definitely blue bits to it. Or the third option, perhaps it is an intuition, a higher mind communication telling you something, a bit like the last question we just talked about, basically. So it could be a number of things there, really. And since a breakdown, well, I don't know is the answer, but it could be something to do with a progression of some kind. If it's an intuition coming from your high mind, it certainly could be something to do with some sort of spiritual progression since that breakdown. You shifted, a lot of karma or something, and then you've moved on to the next stage in spiritual evolution. Orafield, hello. What's your opinion on ghosts? Well, I've never called them that, to be honest with you, but my opinion is that they are everywhere, of course. They are all around us all the time. They exist in the collective mind. I guess I don't call them ghosts just because it's a bit of a word that is, well, let's say it's kind of shunned from the mainstream, or credibility. It doesn't add credibility to it, I suppose. Well, I guess the words I would use are not credible either, but but basically, spirit entities, that type of thing. But there are people in between incarnations in the collective mind, all around us, most of the time. So most people, whenever I bump into anybody, usually they've got about 3 or 4 people hanging around them, basically. And when you increase your energy sensitivity, whether it's through sight, whether it's through hearing, whether it's through feeling or knowing, then you start to become aware of these spirit entities. And really, they are people. They are people who are in between incarnations. They're not always in between incarnations. Sometimes you get people who have finished their reincarnating. We call them avatars. And there's all sorts of entities in the collective mind and astral planes, not just people even. There are, all sorts. So I guess my opinion is that they are there all the time, and you can actually communicate with them if you train yourself to. Some people, it happens naturally too. But if you're going through a Kundalini awakening, it starts kicking off anyway. So when you go through Kundalini awakening and self-realization, these kind of senses just start going through the roof, even to the point of too much. If your astral senses get turned on to the max, it's overwhelming to start with. The information you provide, is it Hinduism based? Well, I wouldn't say it's Hinduism based, but I would say that there are some parts of Hinduism which have stayed accurate to what the reality of the universe is. And I would say the most accurate section of Hinduism is Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta is an ancient spiritual philosophy that really predates Hinduism, or is part of the journey of evolution of Hinduism. Hinduism has got so many different sections to it, so many different types of spiritual philosophy in there, to be honest with you. But yeah, Advaita Vedanta has definitely kept closest, one of the closest spiritual philosophies to the truth of the universe. Also, Tibetan Buddhism has kept pretty close to the truth, in my opinion. So the information I'm providing is not from a spiritual tradition. It's just coming from my experience and the experience of the people around me in Aya, and through intuition as well, of course. But I remember a lot of my past lives. So having said that, I remember a lot of my past lives, and I remember having many, many, many incarnations in India and in Tibet, all around that area, in all sorts of different spiritual traditions. I also remember as many incarnations as Christians as well, being a Christian, a monk or a nun. So you could say that, all this is, if it's coming through intuition from my higher mind, then the higher mind has been in all of those different types of spiritual traditions. And I named a few of them. I remember incarnations as Muslim as well, and ancient Egyptian, ancient Greek. All pretty much most spiritual traditions. Daydreamer, hi. You see orbs? Yeah, excellent. They zip around, don't they? They are funny little things. Do you think it's normal not to be able to sleep because random words or people keep popping in. Well, that's the mind stream. That's the uncontrolled nature of the mind stream, of the lower mind. And that's why meditation techniques are so important, to help you control the mind. And especially when you're trying to sleep, because quite often the mind goes into overdrive at that point. So yes, it's quite normal. In answer to your question, it's perfectly normal. But there are things you can do about it. The more meditation you do, the more control you have of your mind. And when you are trying to go to sleep, because you've practiced meditation for so long, it is easy for you to pin the mind down and stop it from kicking off, basically. So it's the mind stream which starts kicking off, which then starts kicking off emotions in the body, which keep you awake, because of the emotional cycle: thoughts, emotions, thoughts, emotions, thoughts, emotions, like that. So if you meditate, you pin the mind down, you don't allow it, that mind stream, and that just calms the whole body down. And there's other things you can do as well. A bit of breath work just before going to sleep as well also calms the mind down, calms the body down. If you do too much breath work, though, you start getting energized. So be careful of that. Is there a way to know our consciousness exists outside the body? Okay, I love that question. There's so many different ways that could be answered, because I think what you're talking about there is, say, once you've passed away, right? I think that's what you mean. Does then the consciousness exist outside the body? But I could interpret that a different way, to be honest with you, because consciousness itself is everywhere. So yes, it exists outside the body. It exists in you and outside you. It exists in everyone and everywhere in the universe. It also exists nowhere in the universe, because consciousness is non-physical. Consciousness has no form. It's not in time. It's not in spatial dimension. So it's everywhere and nowhere. It's very difficult to wrap your head around that concept, and that makes it infinite. Now, is there a way to know our consciousness exists outside the body? Only your experience can tell you that. So the answer is yes, but you have to look inside yourself and find that consciousness that I'm talking about, which is infinite. Then you know. That's the only way. It has to be experienced. You have to experience the infinite and eternal nature of consciousness to know it for sure. Now, just going back to the first bit of the question, if you were talking about the soul, i.e., once you finish an incarnation and then you leave the body, is there a way to know that that exists? Yes, I think that there is a scientifically provable method to find evidence for the soul leaving the body, existing out of the body, and then going back into another body, a new incarnation. And we've actually got a research project which is starting very soon at AYA. It's called the Reincarnation Project. And we have a whole theory ready to go to actually find biological evidence for reincarnation, because we think that reincarnation is all about anatomy and physiology and emotional memory. And we've got a method ready to go to actually find evidence for it. And we're just starting these research projects right now as we speak. Do you believe in people being able to move objects with their energy and mind? So yes, I do. However, I think it is massively overblown, and I think it's much, 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 much rarer than everybody thinks. And I think it's exaggerated 99.999% of the time. However, yes, I think it's absolutely possible. 100%. You can move things with energy, with subtle energy, which is sometimes called prana or chi. If you concentrate it enough, yes, it's possible to move material objects with it. Where do people in between incarnations go? So there's two things to talk about here in between incarnations. There's two things to talk about, really. One is, where do the energies of their soul go or reside? And the second part is, what are they experiencing? What are they perceiving in between incarnations? So let's start with the perceiving bit, because that's very easy. The in between incarnations, you are in the astral dimension. So the collective mind is a magnetic energy framework which connects us all. We were talking about that earlier. The astral planes are like a virtual reality of the collective mind. So think about the internet analogy here. It's very much like the internet, the astral planes. So on the internet, you are roaming around the internet on your computer. The internet is just a load of cables connecting loads of different computers. There's a load of hardware. And you are on your computer screen, and you are roaming around the internet, and you are seeing a picture on your computer screen. That's like the astral planes. So the astral planes are like a virtual reality of the collective mind. What you are seeing in your awareness, what you are conscious of, is the virtual reality bit. And the collective mind is the network of cables between computers in the analogy. So when you are in between incarnations, you are locked into the astral planes, and that's what you experience. And you can navigate about the astral planes. You can go to different planes of frequency, depending on your personal spiritual development level. And you can meet lots of other people. The astral planes are an absolute huge world of possibilities, really. It's like a collective dream world, and it's everybody uploads their perceptions and dreams to the collective mind. So you're roaming around a huge, huge virtual reality world. Now, the second part of the question is, where is the actual soul at this point? Well, that depends on the spiritual development level of the person. And if somebody is quite a young soul, and the soul has not yet really figured out how to control the whole process in between incarnations, then it will stay close. It will stay close to the incarnation. It might even be attached to its past incarnation and attached to the people in its life. So it might hang around quite a lot. It might not know where to go. So it might be stuck in what we call the ground plane, which is an astral plane, which is closest to the material plane. But it will, in location, it will stay very, very close, and it will try and find an incarnation which is very close. But if the soul is much more developed and has learnt how to control all the processes in between incarnations, then it roams much, much further. It might go anywhere on the planet, and it can wait at any place at any time, really. And there's lots of stuff going on in the collective mind. There's all sorts of connection lines and highways. Like, have you heard of ley lines, for example? Ley lines are big communication lines through the collective mind, where you can travel from one place to another. And there's huge junctions everywhere where souls congregate. I think that'll do, though, for a minute. I'll move on. Time frame between percolation and integration. I think I'm in percolation. Yes, I think you are in percolation. So just as a quick reminder, a quick background for everyone here, Dominique is talking about the different phases of self-realization. In the negative cycle, which is 7 years long, there are different phases of self-realization. And the first phase is the emotion engine. The second phase is percolation. But those two happen kind of at the same time. And the time frame, yeah, that's a tricky one. They do tend to happen in sequence, and most of the time, from what I've seen in most people, the percolation phase and emotion engine phase, first two phases, happen within a year normally. And then you move on to the integration phase. But you know, these phases can overlap, and sometimes you can feel, sometimes you can get uh, symptoms from different phases at different times. It's not an exact thing, really, these phases. But time frame between percolation and integration, well, one is after the other. You know, integration comes after the percolation phase. Does a soul choose what to experience before entering the physical body for conscious expansion? Yes, so that also depends on the spiritual development level of the soul in question. So, at the start of the human journey, the soul, it starts off in a sleeping state. The high mind is in what we call a sleeping high mind. That means that soul has not yet woken up to the fact that it is reincarnating. Once it wakes up to that fact, then it goes on this little journey of recognition, and it starts to remember its past life history. It starts to be able to see its own karma levels and correlate the karma to the past life experiences. And then it starts to learn the goal of life. And usually this is from other higher minds as well, because it starts to communicate with other higher minds as well, and starts to join soul families at this point. Now, at this point, it will start to make life plans. And before that, it wasn't making life plans because the soul was not aware that it was reincarnating. But once it starts making these life plans, then yeah, it is starting to choose what experience it wants. And it does that according to karma and spiritual evolution, because now it knows what the goal is. It's that the goal is to spiritually evolve towards self-realization, which is the culmination of that spiritual evolution. Self-realization, the goal of the universe, the purpose of the universe. So once the soul knows that, it builds its life plans around that aim. And generally speaking, it's going to be about getting rid of its karma, getting rid of its negative karma as a priority, and organizing things in its life to get rid of its negative karma that aids it in getting rid of its negative karma, and also trying to learn ways of stop producing more karma. And that's what spiritual practice is all about. And controlling the effects of the ego, the human ego. And also emotional life lesson learning is part of spiritual evolution, and other sort of lesson learning aspects. But yeah, you choose your family in a life plan. You choose your family, you choose what profession you're going to do, you choose every aspect. The soul chooses every aspect of that life, who it's going to bump into, who it's going to have a relationship with. All of these things are pre-planned when a soul has a life plan. How can you tell if the messages you are receiving are guidance or your mind churning up rubbish? Yeah, that is exactly the right question that you should be asking, to be honest with you. So I would say the fact that you're asking that question is a really good sign, because you are trying to use discernment. You are trying to figure it out. And that's exactly what you've got to do. So I wouldn't worry about it too much, because you're on the right track. Now, there are certain things that you can do to make it easier. There are certain things that you can recognize. For example, when you are trying to get an answer from your higher mind, the easiest way to do it, actually, now there's lots of different ways to do it. You know, some people use a pendulum and dowels and things like that. But, you know, you can just do it in your mind. And it's very, very simple. You think of a question that you want to ask, and it's easiest to start with a yes or no answer. And you think of the question, and then you repeat the question quite a few times in your mind, and then you blank your mind. I mean, you meditate, you blank your mind. And this is why being practiced at meditation is a good idea here, because you can blank your mind it only takes 5 seconds. So blank your mind for 5 seconds and wait for an answer to just pop in. Now, because you are meditating for those 5 seconds, the lower mind is shut down. That's what happens when you meditate. You force the lower mind down and you stop it thinking. And while you are, once you've asked that question, you meditate, lower mind shut down, and usually if the high mind is going to answer, it will flash it in like that. And it won't come from a thought train. Lower minds tend to think in trains, thought trains, one thought after another, like a conversation like that. And quite often it's based around fears and insecurities or emotional type stuff. Your high mind can answer you in various different ways. It can give you a vision. It can give you words in language. It can start talking to you sometimes. It can give you a feeling. It can give you a sensation in the body. It can respond in all sorts of ways. Now, one thing to be careful of in terms of churning up rubbish, if you have an emotional response attached to it, then beware. Always beware, because that is going to cloud the intuition, whether it's intuition or whether it's just lower mind churning up stuff. If it's got an emotional attachment to it, then beware. What's your opinion on magic? Well, it depends what you're referring to be honest. Depends what you mean. Witch is a term. Well, it's quite a loaded word, isn't it? It meant something in the past that people got persecuted for, and anybody could have been a witch. We would have been witches and got burnt. Witches now is sort of coming back now and means something else, and it's more spiritual. It depends what you mean, and it depends what you mean by magic, really, because quite a lot of the things that we talk about on here sometimes considered magic, but I think magic definitely exists. Well, yeah, it depends on your definition, really. Thousands of questions. That's all right. That's the whole point. That's why we are all here. That's why I'm here. That's why you guys are here. Love it. Do you think tuning forks really work? Do you mean for meditation? Tuning forks, banging a tuning fork and meditating on it? Is that what you mean? Because if so, then yeah, 100%. So that is a type of meditation. It's a type of auditory meditation, and it's very useful to focus the mind. Absolutely. If that's what you mean. Hi, Dragon. If you were to teach only one type of meditation to a group, what would it be? Okay, so I can't answer that without specifying some things, unfortunately, because it depends on the group, and it depends on what you're trying to teach them, and it depends on what type of people they are. Are they very busy people? Do they need task-orientated meditation to integrate meditation into their daily lives? Are they advanced meditators already? If so, it would be objectless meditation, the most advanced form of meditation. But I know what you're getting at. Maybe a mixed group of people. You go along and you're doing a meditation event, and it could be any people that turn up, right? I would always start with probably the easiest form of meditation, which is subject-object meditation and kinesthetic meditation. I would probably start with that. Kinesthetic meditation is focusing on inner body sensations as an object of meditation. So the first thing you want to teach people is the concept of the subject and the object, because that's the simplest thing to learn in meditation, but it's the most important, because the whole goal of meditation is to realize the subject. That gets lost in so many meditations. So the first thing you teach people to do is to concentrate on something. Concentrate the mind on one thing. The subject is doing the meditating. The mind is concentrated or focused on an object of meditation. And that meditation would probably start with inner body sensations, whether it's the breath, the rise and fall of the chest, the movement or the flow of air through the nose, the sensations in the palm of the hand, because there's a lot of sensations, sensitive area, palm of the hand. So getting people to feel the sensations in the palm of their hand and their fingers, sometimes the underside of their feet as well. So that's probably what I'd start with. And then you move the object of meditation quite quickly. So you don't sit there and meditate for 10 minutes on one thing. The mind gets bored. So especially when you're first starting meditation, the mind gets very bored. So you want to move people along quite quickly. So you start with your chest, rise and fall. Then you move to the underside of your feet and do, just like a minute on each or something like that. And then you can even move to visual meditation, give them a visualization to do with their eyes closed, looking at the backs of their eyelids, and then you can move to auditory meditation. Anyway, yeah, that'll do. Hi, Jacket. We've been in, I'm not sure what that word means, for over 12,000 years in the descent of the precession cycle. Well, what it sounds like you're talking about is the age of suffering. Is that what you're talking about? Because I think we've been in the age of suffering for about 12,000 years. A planetary cycle, which we're about to come out of with the global awakening. So maybe that's what you mean? The universe is you. Hello. What if an incarnation is a mental construct and not a physical body, just a perceived body? Well, ultimately, nobody can prove to anybody else otherwise. It's very true. However, you have to account for people perceiving the same things. Like, for example, this table is physical, right? Now, it could just be a projection in my consciousness, of course. But if you were here, you would also feel this table. So it would have to be a projection in both of our consciousnesses. In fact, all of the physical world of form would have to be a projection in everybody's consciousness. Now we're starting to get close to the actual truth of the universe, to be honest with you, because the whole of the physical universe of form is a type of illusion, and it's called Maya. And this has been known for thousands of years. Maya is a word that means the veil of illusion, the veil of illusion of energy itself, energy, form, matter. Is a type of illusion because it's made of a duality. And separation is a duality which happens in consciousness. Or another way of saying that is that the source manifests all of this physical world of form within itself. And seeing through that veil of illusion is self-realization. Finding the truth of unity behind the illusion of duality, the illusion of form, finding the unity behind that, the infinite unity behind that. That is self-realization. Ego is noisy and heavy. Yes, 100% agree with you. Yeah. Ruby Rosa, hello. How you doing? All right? How long does a soul wait before reincarnation, typically? Right. How long in between incarnations? Right. Again, this is not a standard thing. This changes depending on the soul. Right. Let's take a sleeping high mind. Hopefully you were here everybody was here earlier when we were talking about a sleeping higher mind, a young soul, a baby soul, a baby human soul. That can take anywhere up to around 100 years sometimes, to be honest with you. It depends on when that soul, it goes through these processes in between incarnations naturally and biologically. Its mind is locked in a dream world, but it's dreaming. That person doesn't know that they are in between incarnations, and their soul gets naturally attracted, magnetically attracted to a next incarnation, and it depends what is around them basically, and they may drift around for quite some time before finding an incarnation. However, more answering your question, and I know what you're talking about here, a very advanced soul can decide how long it takes in between incarnations, and that can range between maybe 60 years, or even all the way down to weeks or even days sometimes. An advanced high mind can control the process in between incarnations, right to the point of being able to leave one and go immediately into another one. I know somebody very well who remembers their past lives well, who has literally took hours or days in between their last incarnation. And that's how we found that out. And just another thing quickly, in between incarnations, say if you take 60 years or something, you decided as a soul to take 60 years in between your incarnations. That could be for various different reasons. One reason is that you could be waiting for the right time. You could have soul agreements with other souls, and you're waiting for the right time to incarnate for your particular life plan. And there's other reasons as well. You can do things in between incarnations. You can go and spend time in other places in the astral dimensions in between incarnations. You can spend time on other planets with life on them, like a placement. You can spend decades there sometimes. In the astral dimensions I'm talking about. Kirsten, I actually had a dream recently that I had 9 lives previous to this one. Well, I think your higher mind is probably trying to tell you something there. However, I can tell you would have had millions of incarnations previous to this one, because the soul starts off in the animal kingdom. So we reincarnate all the way through the animal species, evolving as we go, until we get to the human species. And then there's thousands of incarnations in the human journey as well. But I think your higher mind is probably telling you something there about, and I don't know what the message is. Interestingly enough, though, there are 9 chakras in the Kundalini system. And I wonder if it's a metaphorical, some sort of metaphorical message your higher mind is telling you there, to do with reincarnation and to do with Kundalini as well. Does a soul have an option not to reincarnate, or it's must if karma has not been completed? Yes, so it doesn't have an option to not reincarnate, because it has to incarnate to remove its karma. That's exactly right. And that is because the karma organs, the organs that process karma and that are burning the karma off, are in the lower mind. The lower mind and the material body, that is one incarnation. The energy body plus the higher mind, that's the soul. So the soul has got to incarnate to actually get rid of its karma, because biologically speaking, the karma has to be burnt off by the lower mind. So there is no real option to not reincarnate, and that's why you do well until you get to self-realization, I should say. So that's when you stop reincarnating. But it's not like it's an option. This is the journey of life. This is the journey of the soul. It has to go through these stages. And once it's finished its karma and it goes through self-realization, then it doesn't reincarnate again. And then it doesn't have the option to come back because the anatomy changes through the transformation of self-realization. When trying to meditate, my mind will just not shut up. Is there anything that we can do to help? Yes, you can. So, first of all, you can decide which time of day you are trying to meditate. For example, if it's in the evening, you're going to probably struggle more than if it was in the morning, because in the morning your mind is fresh and calm. In the evening, it's tired, and quite often the mind is more stressed out after the day's activities. That's one thing. Another thing you can do is do a bit of breath work before you meditate. So if you've got the time to sit down and meditate, and there's lots of forms of meditation that you can do throughout the day, of course. But if you are sitting down to meditate, closing your eyes and doing a deep meditation session, always start with some breath work. Do at least 5 minutes of deep rhythmic breathing before you start to concentrate in meditation, because that will just calm the mind down, calm the body down. And if it's a breath work that has some visualization to it as well, or focusing or counting, then you're already starting to get the mind into the right state of being to then do the meditation, basically. And also, you want to switch the object around quite a lot. I was saying this earlier. The mind gets bored if you try and meditate on one thing all the time. You move the object of meditation. You focus on something, then you focus on something else, then you focus on something else. You keep it moving, but always under your supervision. You decide to change the object of meditation. Also, another thing, if you're trying to do mindfulness meditation, then that's actually more difficult, to be honest with you. Mindfulness meditation is when you try and sit back and not focus on anything and just allow things to come through your consciousness, but not get taken away by them, not get taken away by the mind stream. Now, that's actually more difficult to start that. That's why we don't teach mindfulness meditation, to be honest with you, because it's actually more difficult to start with. It's easier to start by training the mind, training the focus of attention, making the mind do what you want it to do, not what it wants to do. So it's about discipline in the mind. So if I were you, I would start with that, focusing, making it focus for 20 seconds on even just the sensation between your finger and thumb. Focus as hard as you can. Lengthen that time frame, then do it for a minute. Don't allow any thoughts to come in. This is what you need to do to train the mind. And then afterwards, once your mind is trained, then you can get the benefits of sitting in objectless meditation, which is where you really start to feel that peace coming through from your awareness. Lara, hi, what is Kundalini? So, Kundalini is a system in the energy body. Kundalini has been known about for thousands of years, and it's an ancient word. And Kundalini system is a system of emotional intelligence in human beings. But it's in the energy body. It's not in the material body. It's made of subtle energy, or prana, or chi, or magnetic energy. And it's a system which grows over time, over spiritual evolution. So the Kundalini system itself will be growing in people as they spiritually evolve. Life after life after life after life, we go through this whole long journey of spiritual evolution, which is the soul, which is learning life lessons as it goes, spiritual lessons. And the Kundalini system actually grows. It grows up the spine. And the Kundalini system has 9 chakras in it. A chakra is an energy pump. And it goes from the root chakra, sacral, solar plexus chakra, heart chakra, throat chakra, brow chakra, crown chakra, 8th chakra, 9th chakra. There are 9 chakras in the Kundalini system. And the central spinal channel grows up through the spine along with that spiritual evolution. And when that Kundalini system is ready, once emotional life lessons are all learnt, then it is ready for a Kundalini awakening. And you have to remove all your karma as a soul. As a soul, you have to remove all your karma for that to happen. The karma is just emotional memory. So when that Kundalini system is ready to awaken, it has what we call a Kundalini awakening. or activation, some people call it. And then that Kundalini system comes alive and it opens up channels. And you start to realize that the Kundalini system itself is just a channel for the ninth chakra, which is up here above your head. And that is the source of the universe. That's your connection to the source of the universe. And that's the purpose of the Kundalini system, is to become self-realized. Because I've just been talking about physiology there, right? Well, as you go through Kundalini awakening and self-realization, what you actually experience is the realization of your true self. You realize that you weren't this personality in the mind, this false self, the human ego. That's not who you are. What you realize is that you have a true self, which is pure awareness, pure and peaceful awareness. And as you go through self-realization, you realize that, as in self-realization, and then your awareness expands and expands and expands until you realize that it is the awareness of the universe itself. It is universal awareness being expressed through you. And then you realize that there is only one universal awareness, and it is the same awareness in everybody around you, and it is infinite. It is a unity. So that's what Kundalini is, and that's what Kundalini is for, and that is the results of Kundalini awakening. Aurafield, hello. Sorry, I meant those forks where people ask yes or no questions on behalf of other people. Okay, I don't know what you mean then exactly, but it sounds like a pendulum, to be honest with you. So I don't know, I've never seen people using forks for that, but people use pendulums. Oh, I know what you mean. You mean divination rods. Is that what you mean? Where you've got these little metal rods that are moving? That's another form of intuition as well. You might mean that anyway. But I've never seen people using tuning forks for it. But you can actually use any sort of gadget you want, really, when it comes to high mind intuition. You know, some people have a pendulum, and you ask yes or no questions, and it goes one way for yes, the other way for no. But really, that's just your high mind controlling the nervous system. That's how that works. It's the same with divination rods. Your higher mind is controlling your nervous system, and all those tiny little fine movements that you're not even aware of. It makes the rods cross over. But really, you can do that in your mind. You don't need any gadget to actually do that. You can practice with a gadget, but you know, it's always better to actually start moving it into your own mind, because then you don't need any external stuff. High mind always wants to grow. Once Kundalini awakened, you are done unless you choose to. Is that a question? Well, once Kundalini awakened, what happens is that you go through an energetic transformation, which means that you no longer reincarnate and you become a self-realized being. You carry on your existence in the astral dimensions, and there's a long existence of being what we call an avatar. There's lots of avatars in the astral dimensions that go around doing their work, and it's usually helping others and trying to increase spiritual evolution and helping people get towards self-realization. That is the main function. Okay, I'm going to have to go in about 5 minutes. If there is a lot of chaos in your life, is there a misalignment? Well, Aries, hi. Well, again, that depends on the soul, depends on the person, and that could have a different answer depending on where somebody is in their spiritual evolution or what they are trying to get out of their particular lifetime. So there's loads of answers here. So it could mean there is a misalignment. Yes, somebody could have a life plan, but the lower mind is veering off the life plan and causing chaos. And the higher mind is like trying to keep the lower mind on the life plan, but the intuition is not yet strong enough. The intuition is not yet strong enough to guide the lower mind on the life plan. The lower mind is veering off like that and causing all sorts of trouble and chaos. So yes, that is possible. However, it might not be the case, because quite often our higher minds create chaos for a purpose. So it could be part of that person's life plan. And the reason why higher minds do that is to burn karma away. Now, I remember quite a few lifetimes in the past where it's been a life where the whole purpose was just to burn karma away. And so, people can go through a whole lifetime, and, if you just look at that lifetime, it could be a chaotic lifetime where just lots and lots of negative stuff has happened, and it's just been a struggle. But the higher mind has planned that, because it needed to shift all of that karma away and get on to something else in the next life. So yeah, it really does depend on what the higher mind has planned, if the higher mind has planned anything at all, because some people don't yet have a life plan because their higher mind has not yet woken up to the fact that they're reincarnating. How to initiate Kundalini awakening? Well, this is a good one to end on, to be honest with you, because this is exactly what the Kundalini Code is here for, is to discourage people from trying to initiate a Kundalini awakening. Now, to answer your question truthfully and honestly, the best way to initiate a Kundalini awakening is to leave it alone and to do all the spiritual practice necessary to get you to the point of self-realization. And that means having patience. That means removing desire. That means doing all the spiritual practice to remove karma, to stop producing more karma. And if you do that for long enough, you will get to the point where you're ready for self-realization. So if you are at that point in this incarnation, it's going to happen. You do not need to go and chase the Kundalini awakening. You do not need to go and initiate a Kundalini awakening. You don't need to do Kundalini yoga on yourself to try and awaken it. You don't have to go to someone else to try and get it awakened. You don't have to do any of these things, because if you are ready in this incarnation, there is nothing stopping it. It is going to awaken because it's ready for it. But the problem can occur when people go and chase a Kundalini awakening and they are not ready. If they're not ready for it, if it's 10 lifetimes away that they would be ready, and they go and do it in this incarnation, their lower mind gets the idea, right, I'm going to go and awaken my Kundalini because it sounds great and everyone's doing it, and I'm going to get all of these abilities and gifts and all this sort of stuff. That's chasing it for the wrong reasons, and that person is going to cause themselves a lot of problems when they awaken their Kundalini because they're not ready for it. And it can cause a lot of terrible symptoms if somebody is not ready for it. Emotional turmoil, it can cause psychosis, it can cause awful nervous system, material body problems. So I really would discourage everyone from trying to initiate a Kundalini awakening. And just have patience and do the work. And if you're ready for it, it's going to happen. That's what I would say anyway. All right, I'm going to have to leave it there. Thanks for all your comments, guys. I haven't managed to get anywhere near to the end, but I do read them. I do read them after I've stopped. And if you come back next time and ask them again, we can talk about it for sure. Because we are here on Wednesdays and Sundays, 6 p.m. UK time. All right. Lovely. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for your experiences. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.